Hey guys, what's up? This is part 2 of our M15 meta and deck predictions. In our first video, we discussed mono black, mono blue devotion, as well as green red strategies that you could potentially see coming in with the M15 release on Friday at your local Friday Night Magics. This video, we're going to go over Naya, Boros, as well as Esper and blue-white control decks. What could you end up seeing people bringing in from M15 to either try to strengthen their decks or change up the meta a little bit? So first we're going to talk about Naya. Naya is actually pretty decently big at our local meta, namely because of a couple of guys. Josh Watts and Mike Schmoyer are really big on the Naya plays. They've been really successful with their decks. Robin Chavaria, as you guys may have checked his deck tech out, has been running Naya a little bit. So this is something that I personally am trying to look for, and those guys are going to be nitpicking this video. They're going to say, no, we wouldn't run that, and yes, we would. But these are just my predictions, okay? Bear with me. So first of all, Spirit Bonds. It's a 2-drop enchantment. When you put a non-token creature out, you get a 1/1 Spirit. Then you can pay 2, sacrifice one of those 1/1s, and then a target creature gains indestructible. This is a really powerful card, especially in a Naya tokens deck, for 2 reasons. Number one, because the non-token creature coming out gives you a 1/1. Second of all, it means that if you already have a Perforos on board with Spirit Bonds out, it means that if you just play one little creature that's a non-token, such as a Scavenging Ooze or blah, 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 just any type of non-token creature you could come up with, you get a 1/1. That's a 2-for on Perforos. You're going to get 4 damage off of that. It's a really strong card that could potentially show up in Naya token decks. Plus, the ability to gain indestructibility means that something like Trostani gets to stay on board for a little bit longer. It is a very powerful card. Will Naya decks play it? There's a possibility. It does offer a little bit more value to Perforos being on the board. But overall, it does mean that they have to take something out of the board, and what do you end up taking out? That's really the big question with Naya. It's such an efficient deck. What do you take out to fit some of these cards in? And so I just don't really know where you would take that out, what you would take out to get Spirit Bonds in there. Is it worth it? I don't know. Hushwing Griff, it's a sideboard card. This thing is going to be huge because it kills 3 win conditions in 3 big decks. It kills Grey Merchant of Asphodel from doing anything in mono black. It kills Master of Waves from doing anything in mono blue. And it kills Fanatic Amogus doing anything inside of mono red. However, you also have to consider this. Outside of Naya decks, anybody using white, junk decks, mono white, this is a sideboard possibility for, that's right, Naya decks. It can also work against you just as much. In case you didn't watch the previous video, I've got a towel over here because I'm sweating balls off of this light over here. It's hot as hell, man. I've got the AC blowing too. The AC vent's right here. It's insane. Anyways, back to the story. Hushwing. That is a detriment to Naya as well, because it means that enter the battlefield effects don't take effect. That means that potentially Perforos doesn't go off, right? Maybe I'm wrong on that. Naya players, correct me in the comments down below, or you guys that are in the local meta, just tell me to my face. But I'm pretty sure that shuts Perforos down. If it does, then it means that it's a huge card to go against Naya, and they have to find something to get rid of that. So yeah, Hushwing Griff, it's going to see standard play. It absolutely will see standard play. It's an instant speed spell that's on a stick that takes out big win cons from major decks. There's no reason that this thing won't see play inside of standard. Next on the list, we're looking at Devouring Light. Devouring Light, it's strong removal. It's exile, which is already a big deal. It means that if somebody gets a God online and starts swinging with them, guess what? You're going to be able to exile that guy out. Also, it's got Convoke, which is really strong because of Elspeth. Elspeth put 3 1/1 tokens on the board. Raise the Alarm puts 2 1/1 tokens for 2 at instant speed. You can get the Convoke cost out there if you need to. So yeah, Devouring Light, it's going to see play somewhere within the white meta. It could see play inside of Naya, more than likely as a sideboard card. However, I will say it does exile. Celestial Flare might still have just a little bit more power. I don't really know what the Naya sideboard looks like, but it has a potential. Removal is still removal, and especially at exiles. Next is Nissa and a Johnny. Are they going to see play inside of Naya decks? Nissa is almost certainly not going to see play in Naya decks. That's my prediction. Why? The 4/4 elementals are already on the board as lands. Therefore, they don't enter the battlefield. Purphoros and Trostani do not actually proc. That is a detriment to the Naya token strategy. If you're looking more towards a Naya aggro setup, it does play. The ability to untap Forest is going to be the bigger portion for it, but even then, I don't know if it's worth spending that much mana to get it on the board in a deck where that may be a little bit inefficient. You're typically trying to get tokens onto the board through enter the battlefield conditions as a way for you to get a win con. So I don't know if Nissa is really that strong inside of a Naya deck, but there will be Naya players, no doubt, that are going to be testing that card inside of their decks and seeing what crazy tricks they can come up with. Beyond that, looking at the new Ajani, it's really kind of here nor there. Yes, you can get 1/1 counters on stuff. You can get extra loyalty counters. That gets you closer to an Elspeth ult. That gets you closer to a Johnny Mentor of Heroes ult. That gets you closer to Xenagos ult. These are really powerful things for a Naya deck to end up achieving. So yes, he could absolutely see play inside of the Naya. His +1 is pretty decent, but it's only to one creature if I remember correctly. That doesn't seem like it's nearly as strong as something like Mentor of Heroes, where you get to put 1/1 counters across multiple things. But the extra conditions that Steadfast offers are definitely nice. It's really about the ult, and that's where it ends up becoming really powerful, specifically if you do have Nissa in your deck. Being able to make 4/4 elementals and then ulting in a Johnny Steadfast to where you would prevent all damage except one that would be dealt to them. Naya didn't need that kind of power available to them, but they'd have it. And moreover, it's splashable. Since there's not a double hard cast on a Johnny Steadfast, it means that it's going to be easier to get him on the board. And given that it's got green mana ramp inside of it, with things like Sylvan Caryatid and Mana Weft Sliver, even more powerful, because you can get them out early and start swinging early with them, making something a little bit bigger and getting those chunks off of your opponent so that way Purphoros can play cleanup. I could see him going into a Naya deck. I just don't necessarily understand where he would end up fitting in, and again, what you would be taking out to do it. Next would be Life's Legacy. Okay. Get ready for this, okay? Think about this real quick. It's a 2-drop spell where you have to sack a creature and then gain life equal to its power. Naya decks, the Naya decks that I've seen at least, run Archangel of Thune. That's counters on creatures. Life's Legacy could very easily see play inside of a Naya deck. It holds power. Even if you're only gaining life for 1 off of a token, it still means that you're gaining life. Archangel of Thune needs that proc. It especially is interesting because if you end up getting a Life's Legacy out and then can next turn throw and Raise the Alarm out, while Trostani's on the board with Archangel of Thune, it's a huge combo, but it sets up power. Life's Legacy could very well be a powerful type of card that you could see going into Naya decks, possibly on the main board in maybe a 1 of or 2 of capacity. It's worth deck testing with, absolutely. And it also seems to be a fairly common rare to pick up. I pulled 2 out of 3 pre-release boxes, so it shouldn't be too difficult to get a hold of, and it's cheap. Next is Hornet Nest. I know what you guys are saying. No, Hornet Nest, really? But think about it. Think about it. It's a 3-drop 0/2. And if it dies due to damage dealt, you put out 1/1 flying death touchers based on the amount of damage that was dealt. Okay, Perforos, sure, paying me for way more than I want. This is a nuts card for Naya. You could easily see Naya players trying to fit this somewhere in their decks. Flying Death Touchers are definitely worth stuff. That stops the Storm Breath. Bonkers stuff. Insanity, absolutely. But what's bigger is the fact that those 1/1s enter the battlefield, which each one of them will proc Perforos. If somebody's hitting you for 5 damage like a Pelucranos with no trample, and you stop him, yeah, I mean, it's powerful. Even if you only get the 2 block out of it, it still ends up being powerful. But he does have to die. And there's a lot of ways to remove a 2 dropout. But it does stop somebody from potentially shocking him. Then again, if you're running Naya, you could shock the damn thing if you really wanted to. So, I mean, there's options that are available for that. I think it could see play, but it's still a little iffy for me. Next is Back to Nature. This is most likely a sideboard card. It destroys all enchantments, which means Naya deck ends up losing their Courser that's on board unless they find a way to, I don't know, sacrifice a 1/1 creature and make it indestructible. Yeah, so that could very easily become a thing. Sideboard removal is always a good thing, and especially when it's enchantments. Constellation is a thing. Enchantment creatures are a thing. Courser is a huge card right now. Eidolon of Blossoms is huge inside of Mono Green Devotion. So those cards could absolutely see play. And with Back to Nature, it means that those cards no longer get to be in play. So yeah, you could definitely see this as a potential sideboard card for those guys. Overall, though, maybe a one of. Maybe just a one of. Not necessarily sure. There are a lot of other really decent enchantments to get rid of, like Devouring Light and D-Sphere and things like that. So it'll definitely see play in anything running green, but maybe not more than a one of, just because you don't want to get rid of that Courser. Next is Soul of Zendikar. He's a 6-drop, 6/6. There's other cards that I think I'd rather be playing in a Naya deck. He does generate 3 3s, but it's for 5. Again, there's more efficient ways, like Raise the Alarm. Like, hell, you could play Feral Incarnation with Convoke, and it would probably be more worthwhile than this card. Nonetheless, there might be that 1 or 2 crazy guys out there that say, I'm going to try Soul of Zendikar. Could work. I don't think it will. So, no, probably going to stray away from that one. Next is a Johnny's Pride Mate. It could probably see play inside of a Naya deck. It's a 2-drop, 2/2, and whenever you gain life, you put a 1/1 counter on him. Well, you have Trostani. Trostani plus a Johnny's Pride Mate. I mean, that's a really great synergy. For the next couple of months, a Johnny's Pride Mate is going to actually be a really strong card in mono white, in Orzhov control, in all kinds of things. It gets really buff off of Abzadat already. It gets really buff off of Blood Baron already. Why in the hell shouldn't it get buff off of Trostani? There's a possibility you could see it coming into play. However, I do feel like there are more worthwhile cards, such as Scavenging Ooze. Scavenging Ooze is definitely, contestably, more important to a Naya deck in the 2-drop slot because of the ability to gain life, thereby proccing the Archangel of Thune, thereby causing you to get 1/1 counters, thereby causing you to be more powerful. There are definitely contentious reasons to say that a Johnny's Pride may not go into the deck, but it doesn't mean that you can't. And even if you want to do a budget type of Naya deck, a Johnny's Pride Mate definitely helps. Give me 1 second, I'll be right back. I am back. A Johnny's Pride Mate definitely has the chance to be able to be in the deck. Absolutely. I don't see why not. But for the more high-end players, I don't think that they're going to be mainboarding this. I think they're going to look at it and say, that's a really cool card, and then they're going to move on from it. Next card is Chain Veil. Are they going to run it? I have a feeling that Naya, above anybody else right now, are definitely looking at Chain Veil and saying, yes, please. If you are having trouble understanding and fathoming this, let me give you an example. Xenagos' mana ramp. Xenagos offers you the ability to put a 2/2 satyr on board. That's 2 damage from Perforos. Then you get to do another 2/2 satyr on board. That's 2 damage from Perforos. Then you get to do Elspeth, which is +1, put 3 tokens on the board. 1, 2, 3. That's another 6 damage. So we're at 10 damage already. And then you get to do that +1 again. 1, 2, 3. That's 16 damage. You got 20 life in most cases, guys. And you're probably going to be lower than that playing against the Naya deck. That's lethal. The minute that thing hits the board, if you don't have a way to get rid of it, it starts becoming a problem really fast. I could easily see Naya decks being really excited about Chain Veil for overall damage possibilities. It definitely means that you're going to have to play your removal really smart against Naya decks if they do want to consider playing Chain Veil. It does mean that Naya decks are going to have to be a little bit smarter if they want to play Chain Veil. Yes, you do have mana ramp, but it also means that you have the potential of locking yourself out from some other important stuff you could end up casting. Granted, the Naya mana curve doesn't run very high, but I don't know. I think Chain Veil goes in there. I don't really know what you take out for it, but even as a one-of, I think Chain Veil is still super strong for the Naya deck matchup, especially if you've got the Perforos and Elspeth on board already. It's a considerable thing. Last but not least, no, actually, take that back. That's everything that I've got for Naya decks. So yeah, that's what my predictions are for Naya deck. I think Naya is going to be really strong going into the M15. I am so sorry that this towel is just everywhere, man. Like I said, I'm sweating real hard here, guys. I'm trying not to bring that thing in, but I'm living and dying by it right now. Next, let's move on to Boros. First off, we have Altec Bloodseeker. Is it going to see play in Boros? You better believe it. I love this card. I love it. It is a 2-drop? 2-drop, I believe. 2/1. Whenever another creature dies, it gets +2/+0, as well as first strike and haste. That's strong. Really, really strong. Moreover, if you put it alongside something like a Flame Speaker Adept, which gets +2/+0 and first strike whenever you scry, and you use Magma Jet to kill something, you get 2 creatures that are already at 4 swinging for 8 with first strike. It's good removal for red deck. It's also really strong just overall damage. I like Altec Bloodseeker, and I think there's going to be a lot of mono red players as well as Boros players that are going to be play testing and deck teching with that card. It's a great uncommon, fantastic uncommon. It dies pretty easy, but whatever. Like, red creatures die. That's kind of what they do, right? Next is Preeminent Captain. I've already heard so many people talking about building Boros soldier decks that are running stuff like Precinct Captain and that are running Preeminent Captain and running stuff like Spark Trooper. Yeah. Being able to swing with this guy, drop a Spark Trooper that's attacking and cause some really, really harmful damage is very, very difficult. Moreover, I think that overall that Soldier's deck, as well as Boros deck in general, gets really, really dangerous whenever, well, so a Soldier deck benefits from that as well as Obelisk of Erd. Now, Obelisk of Erd does play just a tad bit slow for a Boros aggro deck. However, if you're in full Soldier deck, being able to give all of your creatures +2/+2 is out of this world. It's also another fantastic card for Minotaurs. Do you hear that, Patrick? Patrick, you need to put Obelisk of Erd in your Minotaurs deck. For God's sake, please do it. Obelisk of Erd makes some ridiculous things happen inside of any given tribal deck. Soldiers is no different, and Preeminent Captain definitely benefits from that most. Being able to turn that 2/2 into a 4/4 that's swinging, and then putting out another creature like Spark Trooper that's 8/3 swinging with lifelink, yeah, it should happen. There should be a Soldier deck happening. This card needs to have a Soldier deck happening, guys. Could you see him in overall Boros play? Yeah, I mean, they play Soldiers, you know. A Crowan Crusader has place in some Boros decks right now. You've got Precinct Captain. He sees play in some Boros decks. You've got just so many different ways for this card to play out. He also fits really well into a blue-white deck. I mean, Battle-wise, Hoplite benefits a ton from this guy also. So yeah, it's going to see standard play. Don't get it twisted. You're going to see preeminent captains, and they're going to do some crazy things on the board. And also, kind of leads us to believe that Khans of Tarkir is going to have some crazy soldier creatures. Of course. Why not? The next card that I want to look at in Boros is going to be Belligerent Sliver. This card's already seeing some value going on it, and there's a good reason why. It has built-in Madcap skills minus the +3/+0. It can't be blocked except by 2 or more creatures. That's really, really strong. It's good evasion for a 2/2. It also means that they potentially end up losing out on a very fatal block because they have to block with 2 guys on this dude. So you could end up having them throw a couple of their chump blockers over, lose one of their big dudes to one of your bigger guys. Yeah, it can cause problems. I could see Belligerent Sliver going inside of the Boros aggro decks. The only real problem is it doesn't have haste, and that's something the Boros aggro really looks for. But the evasion is really nice also. So who knows? As a 3-drop, I could see it going into some Boros decks here and there. Next is Act on Impulse. Maybe? I like the card, and I like the direction that it's leading red into. When you look at something like that, as well as Prophetic Flame Speaker, what we're seeing as a trend in red, especially with the reprint of Chandra Pyromaster, is the idea of red exiling cards and getting to cast them as they exiled them. It gives them deck search, which is something that red desperately wants at any given point in time. So Act on Impulse could potentially see play. I just don't really know where to fit it inside of that deck. And especially because with Boros aggro running so light on lands, being able to actually cast those cards could potentially be a little difficult if you're playing against something like, say, I don't know, a green-red deck that's running like 6-drops. You know, you could see problems. But in the lower decks, I could see this being an easy sideboard card that could potentially end up causing you to gain some extra win cons on your side. It's definitely worth checking out and deck teching. Last one, we've got Seismic Strike. It's available in M15, guys. You can play it. It's removal. You use mountains. Shocklands are still in for another 2 or 3 months. There's literally no reason I can think of that you shouldn't have Seismic Strike either in your main board somewhere or in your sideboard somewhere. Red likes removal. Red likes burn. Play it. It's easy to think of that one, guys. It very much is. So that's all I've got for Boros. There's probably a couple of others, but unless you're attaching like a Madcap skills to a Broodkeeper, making some 2/2s and throwing out some fire-breathing dragons, I just ain't seeing it really. Siege Dragon, maybe? I don't think so. Chandra Pyromaster got reprinted. There you go. You can put that in. A Johnny Steadfast, actually. Would you put a Johnny Steadfast in there? I think that M14 of Johnny is still a bit more powerful for you just because of the double strike capabilities. However, once rotation hits, Steadfast becomes a little bit more powerful. His +1 is very good for you. His minus ability is also very good for you, and his last ability is like hugely detrimental, like massive. If you can get Steadfast to ult, being able to prevent all but 1 damage, that stops your Chandra's Phoenix from dying. Like, you can't complain about something like that, but your chances of actually seeing him ult, probably pretty slim. So yeah, he's playable. I just don't think that, I don't know. I think that the M14 of Johnny is still a little bit stronger for the time being. Double Strike is just way too strong. Next, let's look at Esper and blue-white control. First card, Perilous Vault. I'm just going to do that for like an hour. Yeah, it's going to get played in control decks, guys. They're losing Supreme Verdict. They're losing Planar Cleansing. They're gaining Mass Calcify and Perilous Vault. It's a board wipe on a stick, which means that A, we have the chance to remove it. B, it dies to a Torch Fiend. Torch Fiend! Yeah, I mean, Perilous Vault's going to get played in any control deck. It's a 4-drop artifact that they can tap for 5. You know what control decks love? Land. They love land. They love drawing land. They love playing land. They love land. Land is God. This does mean that it's going to be a turn 5 play if it ends up happening, but it exiles. It means that Scavenging Ooze automatically becomes less powerful. It means that you being able to dredge things and reanimate becomes way less powerful. Liliana loses a ton of power off of this. It's a good card. We know that, and we know that Esper and blue-white control are all over this like stink on shit. They have to be looking at this card. Do I think it's in the deck? Yes, but only as a 1 or 2 of. Once Supreme Verdict ends up going out, we may see that change up a little bit. Also, let's talk about the other 2 board wipes that we've seen in this. We've got In Garruk's Wake as well as Mass Calcify. The In Garruk's Wake plays more towards Esper. Will they play it? It's a board wipe. It gets rid of planeswalkers, it gets rid of creatures, and moreover, ones that you don't control, which means that if you've already got an Aetherling on board, then you don't have to worry about popping the 1 to be able to save his ass. That's pretty strong. So, do I see them playing Garruk's Wake? There's a possibility, but as a 1 of, and maybe in the sideboard. It's a lot of mana. A whole lot of mana. That stops... If they throw Garruk's Wake, then it means it stops them from Sphinx Revving. So they're going to put themselves in a very gnarly position whenever you have a lot of mana open, a Stormbreath Dragon in hand, pop a Mount Monster, swing 7. That is a problem if they can't gain that life back. So they will be looking at that card, but it's going to be very hastily. As for Mass Calcify, only gets rid of non-white creatures. So it's not going to affect any of the creatures they're necessarily going to be playing unless we start seeing some Hushwing Gryphs in there, which I don't totally see happening since they run counter spells already, but I could potentially see it happening, namely because of the fact that it is another board wipe, and again, they're going to be losing Supreme Verdict. They're going to have something that's going to be able to take its place for some time once rotation hits if Tarkir doesn't give them a lower drop board wipe. But Perilous Vault looks like it's trying to take that position and also give opponents an opportunity to actually do something about it. But you're also playing against blue. They have counter spells. You're probably not going to get to do that. Maybe. Torch Fiend, value increased. Next, let's talk about Jace, Liliana, and Ajani. Okay, so there's been a lot of blue-white control players that have been slightly saddened about the Living Guild Pact. Is he Architect of Thought? Obviously not. Architect of Thought is pretty damn strong. His +1 is decent. It's about the -2. That's the biggest thing that matters. You don't even necessarily care about 8 ulting the Jace. What you care about is getting that card draw. And typically, you'll end up seeing that a lot of the blue-white control players that are out there have started dropping in at least 1 Elixir of Immortality in their deck as a way to be able to cycle their library back in. There's even some guys that run Psychic Spiral right now just to get the library graveyard back into the library so that way they can keep recycling all that stuff. So, do I see Jace being as vital as that? I mean, his +1, it's going to send a card to the graveyard. Elixirs can get those back. It's a semi-scry. But that if you've got any form of scry hate on the other side, it's not nearly as strong. His minus lets you bounce a target permanent. So Cyclonic Rift. You're having to play a Planeswalker to Cyclonic Rift 1 target. Again, let's talk about Void Snare, Into the Void, Aether Spout, Cyclonic Rift. There's 4 bounces that are cheaper than Jace Guild Pact. So what's it really about with him? It's about his ult. It's about being able to force a full discard on both sides and then popping 7 in your hand. Overall, Living Guild Pact, no, it's not Architect. But it's going to end up having its place inside of blue-white control. You could easily see this being a two of in the deck, just because they like Planeswalkers and they like card draw and they like being able to know what the hell they've got laying around in their deck. So it does offer a little bit of deck setup. It could potentially get played. It offers bounce. It could potentially get played. It offers you the ability to be the only person having a hand. Hopefully nobody's got a Sire of Insanity on the other side. So, I mean, yeah, you could see it's Jace. He's going to get played in blue-white control. They'll figure out a way to break his ass, right? Liliana, will he get played in Esper? Probably. The tutor effect doesn't really mean shit. You can get an Aetherling up, but beyond that, they're not running a whole lot of creatures, guys. I don't really see that being worthwhile. The discard, on the other hand, is definitely worthwhile. That's something that they'll definitely be looking at. The ult, it's still pretty decent for them also, because it means that if they can get the ult off and you're running a ton of aggro, they're going to pull your board, they're going to pull all your graveyard out and start swinging at it. Like, yeah, Liliana has a place inside of Esper. Maybe as a 2-of, possibly higher, but I don't really know if higher is going to be the sweet spot, because you really do want that Jace to be showing up. Also, I know a couple of Esper players that are considered even throwing in like one of an Ashiok just to get extra creatures as well as a little bit of mill. So yeah, I could see Liliana going into an Esper deck. It definitely plays. But at the same time, what do you take out of an Esper deck? Again, those two are archetypes that are fairly well oiled. And trying to play around with that can start leading to some really terrible results. So I don't know if Liliana will have a place, but I can see it happening. A Johnny Steadfast, not really, man. Like, they don't have permanents on the board typically, so his ult means nothing. They don't typically need to worry about getting extra loyalty counters on their planeswalkers, although keeping Jace alive for just a little bit, Architect by the way, keeping Architect alive just a little bit longer to potentially get a little bit more card draw, it's not a terrible thing. You know, but beyond that, just not really. There's not a whole lot of need for it. Elspeth, maybe. Yeah, I just don't know. And as far as the +1, you got Aetherling. Like, you know, he's already going to pump enough. The +1 seems kind of unnecessary. It definitely seems like that's meant more towards the Naya setups or the junk setups. So I don't see him showing up in any of the control decks. Next, let's look at Insult Artifact. I mean, blue-white's already running Elixir of Immortality, so there's an artifact. Turn it into a 5/5 creature for 2. Why the hell not, man? Well, because it might get removed. Well, you run counter spells. Yeah, I do. You're right. We're okay. Another thing is Perilous Vault. That's an artifact. They'll be running that. You could turn it into a 5/5. Make it swing for you. Make it do something special. And then after that, I don't know, D-sphere it. Like, I don't know, figure something out. You're blue-white control. You can do all kinds of stuff, so just figure it out, man. Like, you got this. I definitely think that Insult Artifact could see some play. Why not? Why not at all? Next, we're going to look at Aether Spouts. Will it be in blue-white control? It's a board bounce. It stops attacking things from attacking. It forces it back into the library. Yeah, it'll probably see play. It's a board wipe. It's semi-board wipe, but still, it's a good card. You could easily see that going into an Esper deck or a blue-white control deck. Devouring Light, is it going in? Maybe. As it stands, Celestial Flare is a bit more powerful. Devouring Light does offer you the ability to exile rather than destroy. However, it's a 3-drop compared to 2. Celestial Flare still gets around Stormbreath Dragon. And it still gets around Stormbreath Dragon, and it still gets around Blood Baron of Vizkopa. So I think Celestial Flare still has a little bit more power than Devouring Light does, but that doesn't mean that Devouring Light should be counted out. You could see it as a sideboard card. You could see a couple of them potentially showing up in the main board. But I think Banishing Light and Celestial Flare as a combo overall ends up being a bit more powerful for the white removal capabilities. Next, we've got Hushwing Gryff. Is it going to be played? No. They've got counter spells. Like, they may play it in the sideboard just as a joke, but I don't know. It doesn't seem like the white-blue control deck really needs the Hushwing Gryff. Like, yes, it negates inner battlefield and it's on a stick, but you're getting Dissipate. That's on the list. Let's talk about Dissipate. You're getting Dissipate. So you're telling me that the guys that don't run Cancel could potentially build a deck of a playset of cancel, a playset of dissolve, and a playset of dissipate. 12 3-drop counter spells. Holy shit, guys. You don't need this happening. I know you don't run cancel. The blue-white, I'm talking to you guys. Esper, I'm talking to you. I know you don't run cancel. But you're talking about 12 counter spells, guys. 12 hard counter spells. Dirt off your shoulder, guys. Like, nah, you don't need Hushwing Griff. Don't play it. For that 3, you could just counter something and get a scry. You could counter something, exile it. Definitely make sure that you're looking at that mana base a little bit wisely. Nonetheless, it is a splashable card, and it stops battlefield effects, and it's a flying 2/1. It could potentially do well. They may put it in the sideboard. They may put it in main. I could be crazy. I just don't think it's strong for the matchups. Next, Chasm Skulker. I don't know if you guys have ever played against a blue-white control deck or an Esper deck, but you know what they love? Card draw. They love card draw. Divination. I've seen opportunities. Esper decks have Underworld connections. Yeah, they love card draw. Sign in Blood is back. That's card draw. Chasm Skulker has some power, and they have all the ways possible to protect the damn thing. Can they protect it from a pit fight? No, but if somebody wants a pit fight to throw a bunch of 1/1s on the board, be my damn guest. I don't care. It's a strong card, and blue-white players could potentially end up trying to make this something that goes into their deck. They don't typically like playing creatures because they have to rely on the Supreme Verdict, but the Supreme Verdict could potentially work in their favor with this card because they're going to board wipe you out, but get a ton of 1/1s on the board. They can throw out Quicken and get a Divination off real quick after the Supreme Verdict on a turn 8. Sure. I mean, there's possibilities with that card in a control deck that are kind of disgusting. And even then, if they wanted to get real ballsy, I guess you could, I don't know, like, use Hall of Triumph or like Obelisk of Erd and do really dumb things. I know you're not going to do that. I like theory crafting that stuff in my head and think of how absurd it sounds. And it sounds absurd, guys. But Chasm Skulker, I definitely think you could see it showing up in some of those decks. Last but not least, Chain Veil. Will we see people running Chain Veil? Well, for starters, blue-white decks play Architect. What does Chain Veil offer to Architect? A -2 to attacks. It offers the ability to draw up to 4 cards off of 4 mana. Jace's Ingenuity is 5 for 3, Opportunity is 6 for 4, so it's a lesser chance. Now granted, I understand, Jace Architect plus the Chain Veil, you're looking at 8 there. But that's still got worth in it. Being able to just throw the Jace out, get rid of him immediately, or use that Chain Veil to end up +1ing him and then -2ing him. Keeps him on board for a little while longer. Elspeth. Yeah, I mean, there's a possibility that that would end up working too. You can get 6 1/1s on the board. You could board wipe and then put 3 1/1s on the board. You could just get the 6 1/1s and get closer to ult, turn them all into 3/3 flyers and swing for the fences, you know? So yeah, I could easily see it working well for that. What about Liliana? In an Esper deck, if Esper decides that they want to run Liliana, is it powerful? God, yes it is. Discarding 2 cards? Are you joking? Yeah, that's really powerful. And it means that it puts her ult on a really short clock. And somebody has to respond to Liliana at that point. Because otherwise, they're about to pummel your face in by going Supreme Verdict, ult Liliana, get all those creatures that I just killed, put them on the board, and let's go. Yeah, dude. I could easily see Chain Veil showing up inside of an Esper deck, especially for Liliana. For Jace Architect of Thought, maybe. For Jace Living Guildgate, maybe. If you find one of them popping in a Johnny in there, that seems really weird. So, I mean, there's options that are available. It does also make Ashiok a little bit more powerful, being able to +1 and then -X. Pretty strong. But overall, do I think that they're going to play it? It's iffy. You do get to use Ensoul Artifact on it, so you turn it into a 5/5 that swings for the fences. It's still just iffy because you've got to remove something to get the Chain Veil in there. And like I said, they're well-oiled machines. What do you take out to place in there, you know? Control deck could drop Syncopate if they wanted for Dissipate. They could drop, Planar Cleansing if they wanted to bring in Perilous Vault. Like, there's things that they can throw in and out. But trying to get a Chain Veil in there, I don't really know what you take out at that point. So, hopefully they will find a place for it. I just don't think it's going to happen. If it does, it'll be post-rotation. Definitely be post-rotation if it happens. That's it. That's my list, guys. Thank you for joining me on this hour-and-a-half long trek. Oh my God, I am so sorry that I've had you guys sitting here for so long listening to me drone on. But I really do hope that these videos ended up being educational for you. I hope that you ended up learning a couple of things about some of those deck archetypes and trying to figure out exactly what you can expect to see coming up on Friday. I am tired as hell right now. Like I said, I do these videos. I've said this a couple of times. I do these videos at night. I'm sure that my neighbors upstairs are really freaked out about me talking to myself all the time. I don't really care. I like talking to the walls. Who doesn't? But I hope that you guys are enjoying the videos, and I hope that you guys enjoyed these two in particular. Definitely make sure that you answer the comment questions down below. Let us know what you think you'll end up seeing happening at your local F&Ms. I know personally that my draws, I pulled Polymorphous Jest, I pulled Reclamation Sages, I pulled all kinds of crazy stuff. I pulled a Liliana. So the chances of me bringing my bug deck back after last week's poor 1-3 performance with the Grixis deck, I didn't give you a Friday Night Magic recap because I went 1-3 with my damn Grixis deck. It was pretty terrible, and I'm going to rework that whole thing because I think Grixis could be strong again. I pulled a Shivan Reef. I need to use the damn thing, right? I also pulled a Yavimaya Coast and a Lana Wear Wastes. So I've got stuff from my bug deck to use. I might as well go ahead and use them. So I'm definitely going to be reconsidering putting my bug deck together this week, and I'll have more for you guys about that on Friday in the Friday Night Magic recap. For this, leave comments. Make sure you subscribe and like the video because I love you guys, and I love getting to talk to you guys every day on the comment sections, and I really appreciate all the support you're giving us on the channel here. My name is Josh. This is Point Zero Games. And I hope you guys have a fantastic Friday Night Magic and a wonderful week. Have a good one.